Yeah, it's moving slowly. Here we go. All right. Okay.
Okay, we're ready? All right, so say greetings. Happy to we finally have a little commission together, and this is our first meeting with a group. So I thought just for really briefly, new members could just express why they wanted to join the Shade Tree Commission. So Mike, would you like to go first? This is Mike.
Sure. I'm Mike Atwell. I live on Wayne Avenue near the YMCA. My wife and I moved to Upper Darby in about 1994. And I reached out to the mayor a few weeks ago because I was kind of upset. A block over from me, they removed 3 big like oak trees that were healthy. And I was just kind of upset about it. And so we just got to talking, and she suggested that I get involved, which I was really open to doing. I'm a gardener. I've planted trees on my own property here, and I'm looking forward to helping the township kind of rebuild the tree canopy.
Okay, thank you. It's a good spirit to be on the committee with. All right, Evan, this is Evan Hunt. I already know Evan is a tree tender.
Yeah, I'll give a little bit of background. I'm from Drexel Hill originally. I grew up here. And then in college, I got like more involved in like forestry and like conservation and like community engagement and stuff like that. And after college, I worked in like ecological restoration for a bit. I worked at a tree nursery for a while. And then most recently, I was at a land trust out in like Chester County, where we did a lot of like conservation projects, like tree plantings and like land stewardship. But as far as Upper Darby goes, I got involved with the Upper Darby tree tenders a couple of years ago. And I got involved because I saw like a lot of, similar to what Mike said, I saw like a lot of trees coming down in the neighborhood, and no one was really like replacing any of these street trees. And someone told me about the tree tenders, and I got involved, and I've helped out with like all the plantings we've done over the last 2 years and all the various other projects we've done. So it's been really productive. And then when I saw that seat opened up on the Shade Tree Commission, I thought that would be another chance to get like more involved in forestry throughout Upper Darby and like continuing this effort to reforest the town in the places that need it the most.
Well, thank you, Evan, for joining. Now, Joshua, you're sitting in, and you're not a Shade Tree member, but you're part of the township, and you might be helping us somewhat. So if you want to just say a couple words about your interest in the trees.
Sure. Yeah. So my name's Joshua Chast. I work for the township. I'm the assistant director of L&I, but I also do a lot of their zoning and planning. I'm a planner by trade. I worked for 2 years for Delaware County Planning Department before I came to Upper Darby, but I've lived in Upper Darby for the last 2 years. So my undergrad was geoenvironmental. So I've always been very involved in environmental science, in geography, geology. So I'm always interested in helping out in any way I can, especially from the township's point of view. And from a planning point of view. So especially rebuilding the tree canopy as one of our main sustainability objectives. So I'm here if you need me, or if you need any technical support or help or resources.
Yeah, I'm sure you'll be a big help.
Yeah, feel free.
I'll just say a little bit about myself with my tree background. I think around 1990, I at that point lived in Manayunk, and they too had lost many trees. And I started to get involved with people who told me that how the city would bring trees. So I started canvassing the blocks around where I lived, and I got a lot of trees planted that way. And I even went to some zoning meetings for properties that were doing things around where I lived, and was able to request that they put in trees. So that was the start around 1990. Then I moved here in Upper Darby around 2002. Around 2007, I became a tree tender. I knew other friends who had done that. And I didn't know anyone else for Darby, but they put me in touch with Clyde Hunt, who was the shade tree person at that point. And so I started volunteering with the shade tree and with planting since then. So done a lot of work, and it's been very interesting. But like both of everyone here, I've been very concerned, about the amount of trees I see coming down. Sometimes they're older trees that need to come down, but they don't replant very often. And a lot of times they're nice, healthy trees are coming down. So we want to help begin to attack ways of getting more trees back in the neighborhoods. Well, so I put together some things for us to go over, and then we can have some discussion too. I thought I'd give a little summary of Arbor Day. We had that, Evan was there. We had it at Sellers Library, which had gotten a lot of work done. 17 trees were planted, tree stumps were removed. A very long fence, which was chopping up the property, came out. And so that looks much, much better. We also did a little planting on the Westchester Pike, and that's been an ongoing project since about 2008. So I estimate maybe 130 trees have gone in on that over time. And now some of them are getting good sized and healthy, and it's making a big difference. One thought I had about Arbor Day is it used to always be held at a school. Now that we're maybe holding it at different township properties, I think maybe a different time than a morning on a weekday would be good. Did anybody have a thought about that? Evan, you were at it.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to get more people out, have it on a weekend or something like that.
Right, because it's a nice event, but not many people would probably go in the morning. But when it was at the schools, it brought all the kids out, so it worked for that. Now, some nuts and bolts issues that, as I've been working on the Shade Tree Commission before we've had the members come, is that we've had complications between directions with getting trees planted on time we have a fall planting and a spring planting. And it seems like that one of the problems in the works is getting this 811 called. Now, maybe Josh, you can help with some advice on that. When we're going to plant a township area, like the median of Westchester Pike, we have to call 811 and have them look at the site to make sure we don't drill into any pipes. Now, in the past, I had asked if I could call 811, and I was told no, that it had to be that Joe Martin would call them. So I would alert him, but it seems like what's happened both in the fall and even in the spring a little bit is that all of the work for the 811 call hasn't been lined up, and we're getting the trees and they're not ready to plant them. So that's something, and Mayor Keffer started making a little procedural list so that maybe it'll work better in the future. But I have a feeling it's not just making the call, it's getting the spots marked by the township crews. And from speaking to Bill Grant, who does some of this, it seems like there's some problem with him often getting people to help him do this work. So that's got to maybe get smoothed out, because it's taking up a lot of phone calling, a lot of reminders for something that should just be able to happen. So that was one thing.
Quick question for that. So is that for every tree you plant, or is that only for trees that are going in the right of way, where there are things?
I think
water, sewer, cable, gas.
I wouldn't always know when the 811 call has to be made. For instance, when we were planting in Sellers Park, I think, but they did mark one line. So I think people who know more what's going on with Sellers Park figure that out. I mean, so say the Shade Tree Commission hadn't done Sellers Park and we wanted to do it. If we just called 811, we would, what would we tell them?
I'm not sure, but it's,
Also, I think there's code, I think the township pays some kind of fee for the 811, and I'd have to be authorized to do it. So that's
Yeah.
before next fall, before we do more planning, maybe we can get this a little more worked out.
yeah, so what I'll do is I'll set up a meeting with Joe Martin and see what the process is specifically
Right.
and what the holdups are, and to see if there's anything I can take off of his plate
Okay.
without interfering with
Right.
his job.
Because I know with the median of Westchester Pike, I got the phrase I heard was they had to reconcile addresses. Like, for instance, if I want to plant some trees on a strip of Westchester Pike, I might say it's between this intersection and that intersection, or I might give the address of a property directly across from it. But I think they mean something else by reconciling the addresses. So those are things maybe you could learn about and get back to us on.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
If I could just interject for a moment, Joshua, I'll share the document that Dolores and I worked on for public works and the tree plantings, and then that would be a good point for you to start working with Joe Martin on this, because I think we're going to do a planting in the fall as well, right?
Yeah.
That's when we can order trees from PHS, and so anyway, I'll share that with you when I get access to a computer. Thank you.
All right. Well, I think the issue with the PHS plantings is that they come as bare root trees, and they really can't sit around. They could die. Like, I don't know, the so far the oak trees that we have 4 oak trees in the township plant. They haven't budded out yet. So I threw some more water on a couple today. I hope they're okay. I snipped them and they still look green in a lot of the twigs, but I hope they're okay. But so they when we get the PHS trees, they're supposed to go in the ground within a couple of days of that. All right, now there's another thing. The mayor once asked me to put together and implant it in recent years. So Clyde Hunt had given me some papers, but they're hard to figure out. So that's something I need to do. I'll meet with Clyde Hunt and I'll get together as best as I can what the Shade Tree Commission has done in recent years. I might even be able to walk up and down the median and give a pretty good estimate on all the trees that we planted, because I pretty much can tell the ones that have come in the last 10 years. Then
Dolores,
what?
how long have you been solo on the commission?
Well, just since the fall, really.
Okay.
Who's speaking?
It was Mike.
Oh. All right. Is it because I didn't see your face moving? All right. I couldn't tell where the
There's
voice.
a little bit of a lag, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, I can recognize your voice. All right. Now, another thing we need to do perhaps over the summer is, and this is something, Josh, we particularly want your help with, is reviewing the Shade Tree Commission's ordinance. And I feel like we should set up a special meeting just to do that. And I don't know, would people be interested in doing something like that in June? Evan and Mike?
I would be in the first half of June. I expect to be away for the last 2 weeks of June, but I'd be glad to be available for that.
Okay. Would you be around, like around June 13th? I have some company, although I still could probably go to a meeting even anyway. And how about you, Josh? Do you have any particular time?
No, I mean, that's fine. As long as it's at the 7 o'clock hour.
7 o'clock. And Evan, how about you?
Yeah, that works for me in the evening.
All right, so the evening in the first half of June. I'm looking at a calendar. Is June, are you still here June 14th, Mike?
Yes, I'm here that whole week.
Okay.
I'm leaving like the 19th or so.
All right, well, that's a good week for me. Evan and Josh, do you have any preferable evenings of that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? That's the 14th to the 18th.
My prefer would be on a Tuesday.
Okay, so we're looking at Tuesday, the 15th.
Yeah, that works for me.
Okay, so I'll say Tuesday, the 15th, 7 o'clock. And would we want to try to meet somewhere like in a park or something rather than Zoom?
Does it
I
have
would
to
prefer
be,
meeting.
What?
does it have to be public and publicly advertised?
No, I think it's just for us to begin to take a look at it and talk about it. This would not be a public meeting. We have 6 public meetings advertised and people can come to them. We can meet in between on our own. And whatever we come up with, the ordinance would go back, I guess, to the mayor and council. So it would become public at that point. All right, so, okay, we'll say the 15th. I'll just put that, where we meet will be to be determined. All right, we'll figure that out later.
That's good.
Okay, now some really nice news is that we've received a grant for Gillespie Park. It's through the Shade Tree Commission, but really we have to thank Bonnie Halem. She's a tree tender leader and she's the chair of the environmental committee. She's initiated the grant and she brought all the people together to put the grant together, and she saw it through and got it submitted. And so we've gotten a $10,000 grant, and it's going to restore the area of Gillespie Park roughly equivalent to where the goats were clearing out the weeds last year. Hi, Bonnie. I see you just made it. I see Bonnie's on the meeting. I don't know if her sound's on yet. So, okay, hi. So next week, the Mayor Keffer is going to be having a meeting to bring people together to begin to plan it out. So we'll know more about it later. But that's a nice thing that they can we can pick up and work on that. Did you want to say anything about it, Bonnie or Barbara Ann? I don't know if she can hear me.
I can.
Oh.
Wait, let me unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Thank you. It's a great project. I think we have good partners. We're going to be, as Dolores said, bringing the goats back to clear the invasives again before we get started, which is a 2-for-1 win, because it also brings people out to enjoy that park, which a lot of people don't even know is there. So it's really great that we're able to do that. And the Scouts and the Friends of Upper Darby Trails are going to help to build a kiosk there so that we can have some information there on watersheds and why watersheds are important and how trees contribute to clean water. So I think it's going to be a great project, and I hope that we'll get more of these in the future to work on various parts of that that stream, because this is only a section of it that we can do with the $10,000, and we'd like to move further down and take care of other parts of it in the future. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Bonnie, for all the work to get it. Okay,
I have a
now,
question. Would it be possible for us to get a copy of that project proposal, like ahead of the meeting that you mentioned?
Yes. Sure.
Okay.
I
Could you
think
email it to us?
the mayor sent out, well, to some people, but I'll get it to you as soon as I can.
Okay,
Great.
thanks.
okay, so I think maybe when we meet in June, we'll know a lot more about what might be going on with that and how it's going to work. So we can talk about it. Now, for looking ahead, so this was the, I would like the Shade Tree Commission to maybe dream a little and plan a little, and try to get some kind of vision of what we can do in Upper Darby. So, in addition to taking care of the township trees and replenishing trees already there, it's always been my desire, and I can see from both Mike and Evan's statements that we get more trees out into the neighborhoods where they've been disappearing so much. And so we need to discuss thoughts about that. Some of the ideas that I just jotted down were, number one, can we look at more of the business corridors for planting? And what we don't know, like what plans are already in the works? Because I remember hearing that Market Street, they've got a grant for redoing that. So that sounds great. Somebody wrote to me that she would like to see more done on Garrett Road. She said she'd even offer to buy her a couple of trees at the entrance of Nailers Run Park. And she sent me ideas for replanting there. Now, I know a while ago there was a plan put out for Garrett Road. So I don't know what's going on there. But so we need to find out what plans are already in the works, what plans need implementation, and what plans and what steps can we take. In addition to like some big plans, I know like what little spots and islands are there around the township here and there where we could put something in and make it look more interesting and maybe a little more environmentally friendly. Then what I'd love to be able to do is, can the Shade Tree Commission work on replanting residential streets? These are the ones where we've been seeing trees cut down year after year. Can we put more trees in rights of ways where there is sufficient width? And can the Shade Tree Commission perhaps form a liaison with the tree tenders and other community groups who can do some of the legwork of going door to door to get pile lists of neighbors who would like to have a tree planted? And then could some portion of township funds help fund actually getting the trees? An interesting thing, well, before we, while I was waiting for the meeting, I saw a post from Lower Merion where they're asking people to get trees planted in the right of the way, and they contract Lower Merion's arborists and they'll come in and plant them. Here, I'm going to share my screen for a second because I put that, I have it here to show you. Here, share. Okay, can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just saw this half an hour before this meeting. Lower Merion Township is still accepting requests for street trees. If you'd like a tree planted in the right of way by your home, please email the township arborist, gives his name, or let anyone know who might be interested. We need more trees. So now how do I stop sharing? Okay. We may not be able to do everything Lower Merion can do, but what can we do? So I saw a potential liaison with tree tenders and other groups to maybe pick streets and to begin to maybe lay out plans for replanting. Another idea I had was in many places there are tree giveaways, trees in pots, not so big, that residents come and pick up, and they have instructions for how to plant them. And Philadelphia does this every year. They give away 1,000 trees. And I thought this could be done at an annual event such as our Arbor Day celebration or an Earth Day celebration. And I did bring 3 potted trees I had to this year's Arbor Day celebration, and people wanted them. They went right away. So I thought maybe next year we could bring 20 trees and see if people will take them. Does anybody have any thoughts on this whole area?
Yeah, so like hearing all these things you brought up, I think like a really good place to start would be doing an inventory of like all the trees in Upper Darby, because you talk about like programs that Lower Merion or like Philadelphia do, and like I know that recently they've all inventoried all of their street trees.
Wow.
So one, that like gives you an idea of what you have at present time. And it also helps you like identify spots that need trees the most. Like you mentioned, I think that would be really helpful. So I don't know, it's just something that you reminded me of. I don't know if it's like something the township could invest in, but I think like doing an inventory of all the town's street trees would be like very valuable. Maybe Josh has some thoughts on that. He said he has like a background in geo-environmental science.
Right. So the best way, yeah. I'm sorry. You finish here.
No, go ahead.
the best way, in my opinion, to do an inventory isn't necessarily to have just one or two people doing it. It's actually to get everyone to download some sort of open source software. A good example of that would be something like OpenTreeMap. So that way that everyone can go and on their own phones add in all of the trees in their neighborhood or along their street, or get a list and go see what's been planted and see how they are. And within OpenTreeMap, or something like it, you can list the condition of the tree. You can see if the trees that you've planted are surviving, or if they're dead, or if they're growing, or if they're not, to see what works better for the future. But if you want to do an inventory, that's the best way. Get as many people on it as possible, and it really doesn't involve too much technical expertise either.
Do you
Yeah,
think?
I think that's how Lower Merion did theirs. It was all like open, like citizen science stuff. I mean, the only problem with that is like it's not as like standardized and like not as reliable, the data. I think Philadelphia did theirs with like interns, but of course that has like its own challenges, like you said.
Yeah, and it could be a combo too.
Right. You mean like people themselves would report their own trees? They would we would get, or we have a certain people just reporting different.
Well, I guess the
sections.
idea is you would have like a group of like volunteers sign up and maybe like choose like a couple blocks, and they would go out, with like their own phones and like collect data on all the street trees.
Right, and you want to pick somebody in their own neighborhood, but also somebody that cares or at least knows a little bit about trees as well.
Right.
Well, I wonder if we just do a chunk. I mean, Upper Darby's pretty big. We focus on a section of Upper Darby to start, like an area the idea of inventorying all the street trees of Upper Darby sounds like a pretty big project that could take some time, and we could start it. But if we're looking to start planting, maybe we could take an area to work on initially and then keep expanding out.
So there's inventorying, and then there's neighborhood targeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think are kind of two different problems.
Okay, so the inventorying would be something we would get started and would be an ongoing project.
Right.
But we keep working on doing a tree giveaway, though, I think is just a nice way of beginning to get some trees out there with less work. And another thing that I wanted to bring up is the tree tenders of Upper Darby have gotten permission to start a tree nursery in Nailers Run Park, where we can start growing smaller trees, which you can buy much more inexpensively. And then those trees can go out and be planted in neighborhoods. And I wondered, could the township help with a small grant to help stock the nursery once the tree tenders get it established? And that's a summer project to get it established. And I thought a joint effort between the tree tenders and the Shade Tree Commission could provide inexpensive trees for the tree tenders to plant and for the Shade Tree Commission to have as an annual giveaway. So for instance, say next year Arbor Day comes up and we buy 20 potted trees to have at the event, but they don't all get given away. Well, whatever's left over could go back into the tree nursery, so they could be planted for the future. I'm just trying to think of ways of getting trees out to people and ways I see these things being done in other areas. I know when I was in Manioc, eventually I left, but they formed numerous tree tender groups. So they had a lot of tree planting going on because it just wasn't one big group. There was a lot of smaller groups.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a really good idea too. Like there was a lot of interest in the plants that we had at the past Arbor Day celebration. And like most of that stuff was like perennials. Like if we had trees, I think people would be really interested. But yeah, like we talked about before, it's just a matter of like getting more people out and like having it on a weekend.
Right. But for the funding of it, since I can see Lower Merion and some other areas even plant the trees, is it possible that for some of the township's budget for the planting and removal of trees, some small portion of that could be given for tree giveaways and free trees to residents. Because whatever trees are planted will be enjoyed by everyone in the township in the long run, particularly if they're street trees.
And especially if when the trees are given away or granted, or however you want to say it, that the recipients have guidance, or that we're relatively confident that they know how to plant a tree and so on.
Right. Well, the small potted trees, we could sign up tree tenders to help for, like, say you pick up one of these small potted trees and you don't feel confident, that's where the tree tenders can come in. But the small potted trees are pretty much anybody could plant, but someone could go help them just so they feel better about it. And then they grow easily those early years. And I think given we've been now going around the neighborhood, canvassing for trees with people, I'm getting a sense of the kinds of trees people want. What we want to do is you want to try to plant the biggest tree you can in the space, that the biggest tree that will fit that. But many residents want the more moderate sized trees. So we might have a few larger trees for giving away, but keep the more medium sized tree.
We have a specific list that they can choose from.
Well, if we do it, we would, if we decide to do this, we would, we'd have to pre-purchase some trees, but we would get, I think we have a pretty good sense of the kinds of trees people like. The Pennsylvania Horticultural Society trees do send us a list for us to pick from. And, but for, say, buying trees from a nursery like Octoraro, it's a native plant nursery. They offer certain trees. And so you would go in and they offer them at certain, like the smallest ones are only like $10. And then even the ones that are small but a decent size are around $20. So, and small trees grow quickly. Like when you put a young tree in, it catches up. So for $10, $20, we can get a tree. Now we have been talking about the idea of giving residents trees a couple years ago in the Shade Tree Commission. And there was a thought that we get people to pay something towards it. But, you know, they were saying if we gave them a big tree, like a PHS tree, it would require them to put down $20. But I think if we really are serious about wanting to get a lot of trees planted, if we could find ways to make them inexpensive and to give them away, I think that's most likely what will work.
I mean, we could have the tree tenders do, you know, when things clear up and we're allowed to congregate, or we could do an online fundraiser, or just, you know, maybe eventually beef and beer or something out in the park. I think people...
Yeah, something in the park.
We could raise some money, raise awareness, maybe get a few more tree tenders together and help buy some trees. So that's an option too. In addition to the contributions that the township would be making. So
fundraisers. Yeah, I like that idea. So we are having a tree tenders meeting next week so we can discuss it. Because as of today, it's being said on the news, you don't need to wear a mask. You've been fully vaccinated, even inside. And as of yesterday, I reached my 2-week full vaccination, so that's a nice feeling.
Nice.
Well, the fundraisers could also be awareness raisers. So they could so we have a dual purpose, have something fun for people to go to, make money to purchase trees, and just get more interest going. And like I said, maybe find some more people want to sign up to be tree tenders.
Yeah, I know there's also like grants available for tree giveaways. Like I know the Arbor Day Foundation has a grant for doing tree giveaways. So that's like something I could look into, or like we could all look into opportunities like that.
That would be great if you could look into it. I know for other grants, say if we want to do a project, you kind of have to scope out the project and then go and get the grant for it. Generally, you have to say, well, you want to plant such and such a neighborhood and give the reasons why, and then seek grants. That's a lot of work. Well, does anybody else have anything they want to bring up or any thoughts?
I have, yeah, so I guess I had helped at a previous municipality, Susquehanna Township in Harrisburg. And one of their main functions as a shade tree commission or committee was the approval and or denial of the removal of street trees.
Right.
And I think that is a critically underestimated part of actually saving the canopy. The issue is it's been largely neglected for however many years as a function. So really, starting that will require an intense amount of education from the township, from tree tenders, from shade tree, from anybody who can talk about it. But it's possible, it's doable, and I'm almost positive it's in the ordinance already. The only thing that the ordinance has that doesn't really make sense is the application has to go to leisure services, and then leisure services will bring it up to you, which doesn't really make sense because it's on township streets, but we can always work that in with the adjustment. But the process, nonetheless, should be, I have a tree, I want to take it down, it's in the right of way. They bring it to you, you make your determination, say, yes, you can, or no, you can't. And if they can, yes, they have to replant, or no, they don't have to replant.
Now, part of that would be you have to evaluate the health of the tree.
Right.
And if somebody says, I need to take the tree down, it's who do we send to do that?
Ideally, every committee member will put their own eyes on the tree before the meeting.
Well, I know, but I mean, I'm not an arborist. I mean, shouldn't we have somebody who's a professional person to evaluate? For instance, say I evaluate the tree, it looks good to me. I say, no, you can't take it down. And then 6 months later, it falls on somebody's car. I mean, could the township be sued? Could I be sued as an individual? Those would be my concerns about me rendering that kind of decision. So I would feel like if the Shade Tree Commission is going to give a thumbs up or thumbs down whether you can remove a tree, there needs to be somebody who has the appropriate background to evaluate that tree. Otherwise, we're just guessing. And we could, and there's a certain person in the township who's very intense about wanting some trees down, and it needs professional people to look. So somehow when we look at the ordinance, we'll have to talk about that. Now, if a neighbor has trouble with somebody's tree, or you see a tree coming down that shouldn't be coming, do people contact the request line and then it gets siphoned out to the appropriate department from there?
If they have a problem with the street tree, or
right. I mean, I'm the chair of I'm a volunteer chair of the Upper Darby Shade Tree Commission. How much on call am I to the average person in Upper Darby? Like so it seems to me that if they have an issue, it goes to the request line. And then from there, it would be determined who deals with that. Is that correct?
It could. Again, in the system that I think is adopted by ordinance, I think it's supposed to be put in application of leisure services
Right.
to the director, yeah. Or
do we still have leisure services? No.
Nope.
So
I mean, at some point, what was the Leisure Services Department will be Parks and Recreation. And I think Joshua is right in saying that we have to take the onus away from the Leisure Services Department and just clarify that, make it so that it's workable. And I think the Shade Tree Commission is just going to have their purview is going to be street trees, which will be also defined more clearly in the in the amended ordinance. So I don't think shade tree ever really wants to get into people's backyards and stuff like that. That's,
Right, no, I don't, but,
yeah.
yeah, it is kind of defined in the ordinance now that it's street trees, but there is an article in the ordinance that says the Shade Tree Commission can tell an owner to take down a diseased tree. But I thought that was within the context of street trees is the way I saw that, not their backyard trees. But even
Right.
for that, if the Shade Tree Commission is going to be making judgments on street trees, shouldn't we have somebody who can make that determination? I think, see, Clyde was a forester, and he was the consultant to the township. This is the Clyde Hunt, who used to be head of the Shade Tree Commission. His background is as a forester, and he would go and evaluate trees, but none of us have that background. I think
ultimately we probably would, sorry for interrupting.
That's all right.
Ultimately, we probably would have to, bring in a certified arborist. I think would be the best. That'll have to be reflected in the budget as well. But yeah, we should have somebody, and that way, that might not be bad either, because you have a certified arborist. This way, people that are on the Shade Tree Commission aren't like kind of engendering their neighbors' anger or frustration or whatever when the stuff comes up. So you have kind of a neutral party who's professional and certified. So that's why I think I see that being the direction that we should be going in.
But my gut instinct too is even if we say people should be contacting the Shade Tree Commission or the township before they remove a tree in the right of way, people won't do that. They'll just hire a tree company to come in and do the work. And unless somebody reports it, it's like everything else. It'll just happen. So is there some way we can let the tree companies that work in Upper Darby know that they need to have a permit of some type to take down those trees? Because my brother-in-law lives in Broomall, and one of his neighbors took down a tree, and then the tree company was advertising, we'll take your trees down. This is the street trees. So he called his township, and they did have they needed a permit to do it. So he pretty much stopped them by doing that, by calling. But it takes that. So, but I would think that most neighbors won't know about it because they don't sit and read the ordinances on the website.
With anything like this, you need a heavy education campaign, and it's not going to be overnight.
No, it's going to take some years. Okay, but it's good to have the ordinance and to have that as, this is where the township stands on this.
Is there a certified arborist on the Parks and Rec staff right now?
Yeah.
No.
Question for the mayor.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned, that would be a good way to go about things, having like a professional arborist that we could work with to like make these decisions, especially for like when the township is taking down trees rather than like private residents.
Township shouldn't be taking down the trees. The township should just be giving the approval.
Don't they take down trees though? In the street trees sometimes?
I'm not sure, but I don't think they should be. It should be, the onus is on the resident to maintain it, to grow it, to care for it, take it down if it need, but it's owned by the township.
But can the township take it down, like a dangerous tree? There was one on my block, a very dead, very dangerous tree, and the people washed their hands of it. I kept pestering my council person, and it did get taken down, but I don't know if the people did it or if the township did it. I don't know who took it down, but it was dangerous because it wasn't even close to being alive. It was hollow. It had no growth. It was dead, and huge branches were falling. So, and that was a street tree, not there. Well, I guess when we meet in June and look over the ordinance, we'll like hash out some of this a little more.
Yeah,
Like,
we might need a little legal advice as well.
What?
We might need a little legal property advice as well on
Right.
who, Pennsylvania has to maintain what. Because I was always under the impression that the township owned the right of way, but it's the property's owner responsibility to maintain the tree. And
Right.
that means coming down as well. They have to pay for it, but they have to get our approval. And that's how I've seen it done other places. But yeah, it's something we should run by legal before.
Barbara, can you find out about that? What's the legal? What's the legal rights around the rights of way? Like, what does?
Okay. Yeah. I'll
So
find
we,
out.
we know that.
Okay.
Anyway, it's interesting. All right, then, I guess we'll meet on, in, what date, I wrote it down, did we say June 5th? What date was it that I said? I wrote it down. Oh, Tuesday, the 15th. We'll meet at 7 o'clock and we'll determine where as we get closer to that time period. If anybody wants to suggest a spot, I'm open to that. And then our next scheduled meeting, that the public meeting is July 8th. So we meet and we'll meet on the 15th of June and then July 8th. All right. So think about these things and I'll talk to you later. All right. Okay. See you
Okay.
then. Okay. Bye-bye.
Everyone
All
have a
right.
good
Good night.
evening.
All
Thanks.
right. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye.